courting in the old days was like, if your boyfriend is going to come to look for you, he had to come like in the evening early, and then by 9 o'clock in the night, he has to be gone. He cannot stop there no longer. Definitely has to be gone. No, about 6, 7, 8 o'clock. But by 9, the person has to be gone. Well, I met Tinson, my husband, and he was kind of persistent. And I used to tell him, no, I am not marrying you. And he would say, you can be marrying me. And it went on until finally, I would say this, I just gave up to it, and we got married. My wedding was good. I got married over in Grand Cayman, because at that time I was working in Barclays Bank in Grand Cayman. And between coming back to Cayman Brac and going back to Cayman, we decided that we're going to get married. And it was it was okay. We used to see each other over here in the Brac, and then sometime he would come into Grand Cayman, and then we decided to get married. And we had 2 friends over in Grand Cayman, Shirley Ann and Stephen Wright. And we used to stay with them. I used to stay with them after working in the bank over there. And then he came down, and then we decided to get married. I went to, special things about that day. My brother and a whole crowd of them came down to Grand Cayman, and I think it was my aunt that sent a breadfruit cake. And so I hid it underneath the bed, because I didn't want them to eat it. And when I come back because I went to get my hair done, and my hair took a long time because it was so long. And when I came back, I thought about taking out the cake so I could take it to where we were going to have the reception. And when I did that, I drew it and I opened it. It was just a small little piece of cake left. My brother and Tinson, my husband, had ate it because they both liked the breadfruit cake. Well, my sister came, Linda, you might know her, and his mother, and his small brother, Pinky. Well, his name is Gary Scott, but they call him Pinky. They all came, and I can't remember, like I said, my brother Leslie. I can't remember who else it was, but quite a few of them came over to Grand Cayman for my wedding. It was the preacher, I don't know, the marriage officer was a Panton, Honest Panton, but he's dead now. And then we had the reception over in Shirley Ann and Stephen Wright's place over in Grand Cayman. They had a big ball going on time I got there, and like dancing and all that sort of stuff. And then, sometimes you gotta keep them back. Well, it depends on which one of the boys you liked. And I did have a favorite boy before, and in having it I met just as a friend before I met Tinson, or he met me, one of the two. But boys and girls those days wasn't really actually how it is now, mostly. It was more loving, and you didn't have to fail for them troubling you or anything of the sort like that, It was good. We used to play ball in the street, and some of the boys had little motorcycles, and they would carry us on it and run all about with us with it and come back up, and some of that we had to do before parents knew about it too. First I met Tinson. He said he was walking up the street and he saw me running to get the ball, but the ball ran towards him. And then when the ball got towards him, he bent down and grabbed the ball. Then he looked up and he said he saw me. And I said to him, "Give me the ball." and he wouldn't give me the ball. So I repeated it a couple times. Finally, he let me have it. But then that was the beginning. The thing was that every child mostly had to learn from their parents or grandparents or whatever. And it was the way that if they said something, that's what it had to be. It wasn't going against it, because if not, you've been veiled. And so it's about like having to live with, I mostly lived with grandparents because my mother had that. Yeah, when I was 3 days old. So I was all on grandparents in Honduras and grandparents here and the grandparents until she died.
Well, I born in Spot Bay, Kimmenbrock, and because it was just farming and fishing. That's the main issue of way back. People were very good to one another, and even those who slipped a little bit, you would know them easily because of family, because they were all most close to the houses together. The farming was done, I would say, very, very good, because it could supply the people, because each man that had a wife would have a farm and have a boat, or his brother have a boat to fish. We had special style of fishing that even in the modern time has amazed people like the Americans, how we could do certain type of fishing, because they're good on theirs. So yes, that's the main issue of knowing what has changed. All that has changed, but people changes things because you get more knowledge of modern things. Not that it's any better in the long run, but but it do secure the ways of it. And now all like me that thinks back, watch the modernism, went out and enjoyed some of it. Now I'm laying back on just thinking of the old times to smooth off the worries of the modern system. Well, that is hook a big fish, bring him straight to the boat and don't give him 1 inch. They can't even do that now. I can still demonstrate that, and everyone my age group in Spot Bay can do that. Or we used to do it, we're changing it now because generation of younger people prefer to have what you would call excitement more than, I would say, like karate thing, just demanding. You know, some moving around pretty good and you're laughing and talking, the modern system, hooking the fish and he goes straight down or halfway down, the rod is flying, they uses that, the rod, and it's fantastic. But the thing is, what about bringing the fish to the boat so you can get home so your wife can cook in time for 12 o'clock? You're playing around with the fish, how are you going to get in time? No, so you hook them and you catch them. If you want to see how it's done in 2 minutes, I can show it to you and you'll remember that for the rest of your life. I can show it to you right now. If you prefer me, since you're asking, you can still go ahead. I can show you that later. If you want it now, you can get it. It's a talent. You got to have basically what you would call strong mind. Because if you make a mistake, you can't do what I'm telling you. One mistake, you're in trouble. Serious. Lose your hands or you go over the side. I'm talking about marlins, wahoo. Bring them straight to the boat. Not no playing around, not going jumping in the air with the fish doing that. But I can show you that. The only how you're going to believe it if I show you. It will be the only way. One that was so, I had liked it, I didn't like it first, but I liked it, and that is gone. And that is marrying a woman or a girl, whatever age group it is. And you had to you had to write a letter and get a witness with the letter to give to the girl's father. And if he disapproved, you would have to wait till the girl is 21. You couldn't marry her. She was not allowed, she couldn't marry you. But that letter, if she was 19 or under, it had to be passed by the parents. Well, 16, you could get married. Which they have that amongst them. You just don't, they run in and tell the dad that they want to marry this guy, or not something like that. He would have to be coming to the house. The girl can't go to no man's house. He must come to her house. And the parents sit right there. It's no special room for them. Or sitting someplace else. Everything he says, they hear it. Or she says. I've known that a lot, but that's gone now. It's not like that anymore. And the same thing that I just tell you, the fishing system is done quite differently. I like it how it works, but you can't keep from being what you call nature or modernism. It comes in and levels off everything. Those that can remember, it's fine. Those that don't, you can recall if they're born here. When I said about getting married, the thing were, you couldn't jilt the girl at the altar. That's why the paper was put there. Parents, guardians. He couldn't do it. If he did, he'd go in jail. You couldn't do it. Not after that letter was held by the parents. They keep it in a thing called a trunk. It was bought in New Orleans or something, but they used to buy them. And they keep that. No kid goes in that trunk, and that paper would be in there. And if this guy thinks he can play the field and do what he wants, quite wrong. So it was obeyed. They kept it under the right rules. The people know. But of course, if you can sneak around a little bit and not let the parents know, or somebody know what you're playing different from the girl know, then that was different. But to marry, it had to be settled in a different way. That one has really, I see the way how things go now. I wonder how they couldn't just hold on to that one a little longer. It seemed to be very bad now. And the doctor that was here, was no hospital when I was born. It was a little guy with a truck, not a truck, a little thing that you put a piece of iron in it and twist it around on the outside. So then it starts. Now it owns thing like a car that was here. And he didn't take around people, he only checks the sick people. Like a doctor from Jamaica, Lawrence. Best, I never known a doctor. I know good doctors now, modern, and they take out piece, put in piece. He didn't do that. But when he gives you something to take, you take it, you'll be okay. Now that is something I don't know if the modern people can understand that. I'll just give you a little hint of why I said that. I was sick with tonsil trouble, came from USA on the ships, and I couldn't talk, I couldn't eat for a whole day. So the next morning, I went to Mr. Lawrence, he looked at it. Just looked. Went and said, I soon come. Went in the room, came back with a bottle, a clear bottle, and he was stirring something, but you could see through the bottle, and I see black, green, white, pink, but he was stirring it, and he got to me, open your mouth. I opened my mouth and he painted my tonsil. And I'm 82 years old. And I never had that again in my life. And what I wanted to find out, and I always asked people, what in the world? And they asked some tourists, mostly because of my store, what do you think those colors, what was the ingredient? I said, nobody knows, just him. And he was using a rooster feather, chicken feather, to stir the bottle. So it was a simple medicine. Well, the colors were a little mystery, but you know. So now it's a different world. Now, I've been out there in it. I've been in the Merchant Marine for many, many years, over 14 years, just trailing, come back home. It was wonderful doing that. I get to see the places I heard about in school. Talk to the people. I don't stay on the ship. When she hits, I'm gone.
I used to get my clothes was my aunt that used to live in New York. She always used to come out because she had a little clothing store, and she always used to come out and bring clothes to sell. And she would always bring me clothes from her daughter or her granddaughter. So I always had clothes, lots of clothes, but they were always second-hand clothes. But up till today, I like second-hand clothes. So my cousin tells me she loves second-hand clothes because they're already broken. So for that reason, you know, I always had nice clothes from, like I say, second-hand clothes, but they were nice. Well, I would say, you know, what I used to get was fashionable clothes. But it was nothing you'd say that well, it was up till today, it's certain fashions I don't go for. But then I had to accept whatever came. Like I say, it was my aunt, and she was married to a man from Spot Bay. So both parents was from here, but they lived in New York. Food came on these boats. And it wasn't like how it is now, that you can go to the shop in a day and pick up apples, grapes, or any kind of fruits. You had to wait. I remember when I was pregnant with my first child, I had a craving for apples and grapes, but we couldn't get them. We couldn't get them until like it was like Christmas time. And that's when I really found out that I was pregnant. I had this urge for these grapes and apples, and it was Christmas time, and that's when we got fruits and things. Mostly wasn't until then. And I heard that it was the little store that was in our area had the apples and grapes, and I went and got some. And I ate what I wanted, but I paid up for it after. Throw up everything. And then my mother said to me, but you wanted these apples and grapes so bad, now you're throwing out. What happened? And I said, I don't know. So shortly after that, I found out that I was pregnant, you know? And yeah. Those were
trimester, getting sick.
Those were good. We would look back at it then now and say they were bad days, but they were good days. To me, I think sometimes that they were better than these days. No? It would say like every week you'd have like 2 or 3 ships here. Like I said, it was plenty more people on the island then. Because, for instance, or like Spot Bay, nearly every yard had a little shop in it. Yeah, it was a lot more people than what it is now. A lot of the people left here and gone to Grand Cayman too. A lot of them died, but a lot went over to Grand Cayman. Well, we could get snacks like crackers, because that was one of the snacks that we had, you know, the water crackers, and put sugar on them. Another snack we used to have was grate the coconut and put a little sugar in that. That was another snack. But the crackers with little brown sugar in it was a big snack.
I remember from 1932. I born July, as I just said, July the 1st, 1930. So that brings me to be 2 years and 4 months when it's the hurricane. The hurricane was in December, November rather. And life went on, of course, the hurricane then, as I said, when that hit the island, it was a sad day. All the people moved from their homes and went to the caves. And there was a few homes that were near the bluff. And they clung to those homes that was up on the bluff, which was many on the bluff. Most of those days, the people lived out on the seaside, around the beach way. That's why they lost so many homes. And that after the storm, there was only 3 homes that was remained standing. A home which was next door to where I live, my mother's home, which belongs to Albert Walton. And the other homes, one belongs to Robert McLaughlin, and there was an old home which was the Heritage, that should have been the Heritage home now, but they knocked that down. The hurricane didn't knock it down. It was taken down after Paloma Hurricane. Of course, they have one building now they call the Heritage Home, but I don't look at that as a Heritage Home because the old one should have been there because the hurricane didn't knock it down, so I figured they should have left it. Anyway, they were the 3 homes that was remaining after the hurricane. And there was no time that, as I said, I was a young child, I can still remember the way the water, the ocean, the sea went right flush to the bluff. And I remember seeing, as the days keep going by, the water keep going down, and the people going from neighbors' yards to neighbors' yards in different places, bringing back their pieces of lumber, pieces of homes to try to put back together, to have somewhere to stay, you know. And my mother's home, that was flat, which I said had been many more. So I can remember now seeing my mother underneath the gable in our house. We had it, you know, and that's where they used to keep the rain come or anything like that. So that we survived until they got the homes. Eventually patch up and build back somewhere, somehow. That took a couple of years before the people got back because I think they were, as far as I remember, was some English ship that came and brought a lot of stuff, you know, for them to build back, you know. Well, life was rough, tough. My father died when I was 9 years old, leaving my mother with 8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys. I happened to be the only boy that is still alive, and the youngest sister, Anne, is still alive. And life was hard because we didn't have nowhere to look for anything, and we were speaking no more than we had my father, but he was dismantled by a dynamite. He got his eye blown out when he was a young man. He got his nose blew off, his stomach bust pop open, and one hand off. He was almost, but he had the constitution of a mule. He was a strong and well-going old man. With that one hand, he could do but some of everything, do his plantation and all like that. And he was our only help we had. He was the only help we had. My mother had. And of course, it was a lot of people was in the same shoe, you know, having nothing, nowhere to go, because things was bad those days, was really, really bad. Those days, they had a lot of sailing schooners, and they had a permit that they could go to Cuba and get green turtles, catch green turtles. Those days, that was the only source that the island had of making $1, because when they catch the turtles, they couldn't consume all the meat because, you know, nobody had money to buy it. But what they do, the way they used to make the money, they would, from the skin of the green turtles. So when they save the skin of the green turtles, because you used to put that in a big drum and boil it and pick the bones off or the ribs off, and then you take it to the agent. They had an agent here by the name of Taylor Foster. He was the agent for it, so when you carried it into him, he would pay you right off the reel. And then when he gets so many £1,000, he would ship it to England, ship it to Jamaica, and from there to England. So that was where the few dollars used to come from. But no, after that, the people got so discouraged that they didn't worry with the totaling too much then, because there was so many. At that time, I remember my grandmother, she ruled I think with 3 sons and a grandson into that. So most of the people got discouraged, and it's kind of like, didn't worry with it anymore. So that was how my father went. He went out there to get green totals, came back, and took the totals off and put them in the crawl, and then they anchored the ship. But his nephew, his uncle, no, his cousin, told my father he mustn't put the ship in the harbor. That little Cayman must let it remain there because he was going to use it in 3 days' time. Before the 3 days was up, it became like a hurricane, what we call I don't know what kind of weather that was, because it was calm in the morning, all that fun in the evening was before midday was a storm. My father went in to secure the ship because his cousin said the ship was on his responsibility. But my father told him, no, it's on yours because you said leave it here on the anchorage. So my father, he took it to put it in the harbor. Then the hurricane came and caught him down between here and Little Cayman. That's where he went down. But it was 4 of them on the ship at the time. And the 4 of them swam back from about almost halfway between here and Little Cayman. The wind and seas was coming from this way, on the west, so it drove them back to Cayman Brac. They all got ashore. My father got ashore and stood up on the beach. Nobody got hurt. But he had a nephew along with him that was young. You think he was around about 16 or something, age old, 16, 17. And he was out in the sea. The sea was taking advantage of him, and my father went back to help him. And on his way going back to help him, the piece of wood that the boy had swimming on, came off in the sea, in a wave, and hit him in the back of the head and killed him. Knocked him out, and in the water, and that's what the death of my father.